I'm gonna read you fun facts, just to introduce you. I love Kimberly, you didn't put this as a fun fact, but I think it's a fun fact. This is Kimberly White. She's the first person ever hired by Vacasa. I think that's cool. That is a fun fact. That's a really fun fact. That's just kind of part of your bio, but it's a fun fact. She hates seafood, but she loves sushi. Her favorite book is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Her favorite design style is mid-century and some quirky vintage mixed in. And her least favorite design trend is chevrons. This is Carie. And Carie couldn't think of one fun thing about herself, so she asked her sister. She took ballroom dancing lessons while she was pregnant 14 years ago. She knows, oh, you and my husband would get along, 80s rap lyrics from the days of working in a record store. Don't break out in a rapper's delight. I kind of want to. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. She alphabetized her spices. Anybody else do that? Raise your hand. Do you alphabetize? If I have to look for the dill weed one more time, I am going to alphabetize my spices based on this. I think it's great. She used to iron her jeans. She doesn't anymore, thank God. And she's trying to learn Italian because she's going to go back to Italy in March. So what we're doing today with our fun fact people is talking about interior design of our vacation rentals. We know how important photography is, how presentation is, and I heard about this for the first time just a year or two ago. Somebody did a purpose-built design workshop, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. We're actually building homes now that are just not second homes or homes to live in, but that are specifically for vacation rentals, which is amazing. So Amy has sent over some questions. What we're going to do is ask the question, get answers, see if you have questions for our speakers, and then we want to hear a couple of your ideas, because the real wealth of knowledge in this room is everybody who's sitting here in this room. So we want to share ideas as much as we can. I'm just going to wander around and take your questions and whatnot. So the first thing that Amy wants to know, what is the difference in interior design for a second home and for a second home rental? What's the difference? Do I have this?
Can you hear me? How about now? No? I don't think your mic is on, sir. We'll trade.
Go.
Okay. Hi. So the difference between residential design and interior design for vacation rentals is, by and large, the materials that you use. It's very different from a residential client where the end user is a family that's going to reside in the home. You have greater wear and tear. You have a larger amount of people occupying this space. The home's rented for 200 nights a year and it holds 12 people. Not many of us have that many people occupying our homes that many times out of the year. So you're looking for durable fabrics and materials that will last because it is a different consumer. Additionally, it has to be marketable. So when you're designing for a client where they're residing, it's about their personal taste and comfort, not for mass appeal and for marketing photos. You're not going to photograph your own house unless you're going to be in Architectural Digest or something. So by and large, that would be the main difference.
Those are the exact 2 points I thought of too. Is like one, that this house, it's a business product, and that's totally different than designing something for your own fantasy vacation that you're using for your own second home that you don't intend to share. The second you share it, that means that you've got to market it, and that means you're appealing to someone other than yourself. And if you're not considering that, then you might be missing the mark a little bit. So the fact that it's being shared is the first key difference, and then materials. If you have a sleeper sofa at your own home, you might use it once when your in-laws come into town, right? But in a vacation rental, good Lord, those things get used so much, so much. So the durability of every single thing you choose matters. It matters so much more, and it might be that you can't always get the right kind of fabric or the right kind of thing from your typical retail store sometimes too, if you really want it to hold up.
So I have a question on that. When a lot of owners that I have feel like they'll just replace it. I'll just replace that couch in 3 years or 4 years. I'm pet friendly. What is your thought on that? Should they be just replacing it, or should they be buying right to start with?
Well, you're going to replace it eventually, but you'll replace things a lot more frequently if you buy cheap, right? And so I usually look at it as like, which item are we talking about, right? So if it's, I usually go a little bit, I don't want to say cheaper, it's not the right word, but a little cheaper on, less expensive on a nightstand, but never on a sofa, because it's where your body is the most is going to get worn down quicker, and you don't want to be replacing a sofa every year. It's too expensive. And so I say you kind of invest a little bit more in the bigger pieces. You're going to replace it probably more than you would in your own home, but not as much as if you bought the IKEA sofa. Was it Kath? Yeah, you are. We had a conversation about IKEA sofas last night over drinks. She makes such a solid point, is that they sell the slip covers, so you can just replace that and get your Allen wrench out and tighten the thing, and it can kind of do really good, especially for like a starter vacation home. I do not disagree. Things where you can replace the covers if it's gotten stained is a really smart option. If the budget allows, making sure you're looking into the frames of things, the hardwood. If that starts to break down, you're going to have to replace the whole thing. And I don't know, you'll just have to do it a lot more than you would if you invested the long run of a product.
When I'm allocating for a budget, the highest use items get the most amount of money. So that would be your sofas, fully upholstered chairs, dining room tables, dining chairs, anything like bar stools. We're in a beach destination, so the type of use that we have is very different from the west coast of Portland, where Kimberley is, right? So the materials you use are critical. Most folks where we are have sunscreen or quick tan or sand, dirty feet, and Cheetos. They have some combination of these things, and they're sitting on your upholstered furniture. So we've been using a lot of Revolution fabrics. If you haven't heard of those, they're manufactured in North Carolina. They're very durable and cleanable. Sunbrella has a great line of interior fabrics that's very durable. So what I tell our clients is the lion's share of folks sitting on that upholstered piece will not be fully clothed, and they will have oils on them. And so we pick the best thing we can for that budget. Typically, I'll allocate about $1,300 for a sleeper sofa. We work with a manufacturer in North Carolina, and what we recommend is a solid frame, especially if it has a mechanism in it, a solid plywood frame. Box cushions, so they could be flipped, not attached. We'll fabricate armrest covers to extend the life. Where they're fitted armrest covers, and that basically will extend that sofa up to 1 to 2 seasons, really, because those arms are a high wear and tear. So those are little tricks that we have to extend the life of furniture, especially when it comes to upholstered pieces. As far as the time frame, when I'm telling our clients what to budget for, I tell them 3 to 5 years. It all depends on the occupancy of the house. You can have a sofa that still looks good at 5 years if you have quality construction, good foam, detached pillows, a good fabric. It will hold up. You may have to fluff the cushions or add some filler at some point to try to prop it back up, but they should budget to replace. That's a consumable item.
Do you have a list of how long things should last that you give to a homeowner? Like, your master bed mattress should last this long, your recliner should last this long, the couch. Do you have something like that? Because I want it.
I haven't ever written it down, but it's something that we've talked about as an industry for a long time.
Yeah, because homeowners always want to know that, like, know what the time frame is of something
Yeah. Do
lasting.
you have it written down? Because I just say it to people when I'm talking to them.
Yeah,
Oh,
that would
I
be
should read it.
great. That'd be a great resource
Right.
for us.
Generally speaking, with the upholstered pieces, 3 to 5 years is what I tell them.
Even in
Okay.
pet-friendly properties.
Even in pet friendly, if you buy the right fabric and the right frame, yes. You can buy disposable furniture. I mean, IKEA preaches sustainability, but throwing out a sofa every year or two is not very sustainable. And that is the reality. Slip covers, I know that you had mentioned slip covers, that can extend the life, but then in our company, for instance, if you have a smaller washer in the home, it has to be sent off site. So that owner is going to incur laundry charges, which on the front end I discourage because, well, one, we mandate a second set. So they have to maintain 2 sets, and then once it leaves that property, it's a billable expense to them. And it's not necessary. It looks great. In our particular region, a lot of people do have slip covers, but it's an ongoing maintenance charge that is avoidable when you can select something else. On the chairs, dining chairs, you could easily get a decade. You really need to invest in something that's sturdy. It depends on your region. Those cute bistro metal chairs are very popular now. They're also great when you have swimsuits sitting on them. They're fairly durable. So that is something many of our owners will put in as a low-cost item. You should get at least a decade out of any of the case goods, which is nightstands, dressers, things of that nature. And then if you do want to spend less on those items, what we will do occasionally, we'll shop on Wayfair or some of these other retailers, we'll just cut glass for the tops, and that will extend the life of that furniture piece because it's all veneers at this point, so it starts bubbling up. It's a picture of wood, so it's they're not very durable, so you have to be sort of mindful of how long is this going to last, and are you okay with it lasting 1 season for $100, 2 seasons, you know, whatever that cost.
As far as upholstery, if I can ask what it looked like, as far as, you know, as the sofa and the chairs, do you recommend this umbrella type fabric? Do you recommend leather?
In our region, we do not recommend leather because of the body oils.
Right.
Yeah, people in bathing suits with sunscreen, we do not recommend it. And then you really need to spend money. It's fine in our own homes because we know how we take care of things, and we don't eat on upholstery and all those things that our guests do, I guess. But it does not wear well. You'll have oil stains. It is a maintenance item. Nobody maintains their leather by conditioning it. So, and you really need to spend money because it's bonded. It will delaminate over time, and then, or it's top dyed. So if it's a color, it's white underneath. So you have that really cool teal ottoman, and your guests are using it normal, and they put their feet on it, it's white underneath once that wears out. So we don't recommend leather in our area.
I similarly don't recommend leather for ocean front areas. I do recommend it if the owner will spend on good leather that's not just the top dyed kind. But it's an expense, and oh my gosh, like there's a whole master class on different kinds of leather that we could get into. But if you get a good kind and it can wear well, it's just so much pricier, and most owners aren't really putting that level of furniture in their second home, at least not the ones that I've worked with historically.
Quick
I love
tip
it, though.
for master beds, because we have a lot of owners buy inexpensive master beds, rooms to go, that type of thing. And they come with slats. So your box spring goes on the slats, and then your mattress goes on. Once the slats start to break and crack, I'm not sure what guests are doing while they're on vacation. But I'm just saying, the master bed. So what we've started doing when owners buy their bed is actually replacing the slats with 2x4s. You can't see it. It raises it up 2 inches, which is okay.
Nice sometimes.
And it keeps the frame nice and, sturdy. It doesn't, tend to break as often. So
Good thinking.
that's a quick tip. There's a use for a 2x4. Oh, do you have a question on that? No.
I was just going to ask, I really encourage our owners with the performance fabrics that you use. There's lots of different ones. Have you found them to be receptive to that, to using the performance fabric?
Here, say that again, because we've got people back.
I said, you had mentioned that your fabrics that you talked about, the performance fabrics, and suggesting that to owners. Have you found them to be receptive to that?
Yes. We have an internal design services program that I head up in our company. So I work direct with manufacturers. It's kind of like when you're selecting paint for a client, you don't show them the whole fan, you show them 3 of something. So what we're showing them is what is the best practice and what is best for their money. So they're not really questioning the material so much because it's our recommendation. We tell them the durability, we show them the colors, and we order it turnkey for them. So once they hear about the benefits of it, it's really not a hard sell, and it's not significantly more. When where you have to state the value proposition of that is, yes, you could go absolutely to Rooms to Go, I don't know if they have those all over, and pay $700 for a sleeper. It may or may not even last a season. The cushions will be attached, or it'll have webbing on the back, you can't flip them, and the frame's going to pull out after the first dozen times of use. So it's not hard to explain why there's a cost differential in these items.
Well, I also do in-house design for our owners, and I think it's part of it just education, you know, being able to educate people on that. And so we end up putting a sofa in our office with the Krypton fabric on it, treatment on it.
Oh, that's smart, because then I can sit on it.
Can you hear in the back? Can you hear her okay? Perfect.
Oddly
Okay,
enough,
great.
most of our clients do not get bogged down in the details of what we're going to put in there. When we present a design plan, it's very much about numbers and return on investment. So to speak to Kimberly's point on leather, spending $8,000 on a leather sectional or something, the return on that versus $2,500 on that same furniture item, it doesn't make sense. If it's their preference and they want to put an item in, I could state the best practice and what we would recommend, but ultimately it's their money and their home. If they want to put a chenille sofa at the beach and then have body imprinting on it, you know, it's just an uncomfortable conversation in a year.
That leads right into Amy's next question for you two, which is, tell us what we should not have in a vacation home, furniture or accessories, and what you should have absolutely in a vacation home, furniture and accessories. We'll start with the do-nots.
Can I, because this time, for this one, like, my brain started going nuts with the do-nots first, which I feel like might say something about my personality. I don't know. I think I see a lot of things going wrong in houses. So I did a quick, I just started jotting it down, and this is like maybe 45 seconds of brainstorming, so we'll have so much to add to it, but some of the things I said to not include, this is like, it's an owner that's not really, hasn't engaged me in design services yet, right? So they have an old mattress that it's been there for a good decade, it's fine for when their kids come visit, it'll be fine for other kids that come visit as a guest, they're gonna leave it in there. So old mattress, really difficult to clean items, any kind of fabric that is white or ivory, flat bed pillows. This is my biggest pet peeve of all time is flat bed pillows. Any religious or political items for a vacation rental, you guys manage this all the time. You know that can get a little contentious. Live plants, overstuffed couches, that is another just Kimberly thing that I just don't like, the 80s, like overstuffed arms, and too many knickknacks that are hard to dust. I know, it's very short. You're gonna have, I mean, it's not my only list. It's just, you know, for the sake of a quick brainstorm. Yeah, please do.
I'll add to the no list. So when we walk through with our clients and we're previewing homes, and they want it to be pet friendly, one big item is natural grass rugs. Anything jute or sisal. It smells like grass to a dog. More than likely it is that dog is going to go on that rug. They're impossible to clean. So that's a big no. If they're there, we will tell people they have a limited lifespan. If they want to leave them there, they don't want to allocate money to it in a year one thing, that's fine. Let's just wait till it dies and replace it with something more suitable for a vacation rental, for example. So bric-a-brac, things that look like they were picked up on the curb, yard sale fines, things of that nature. It really is a morph of residential and commercial use, and when setting up this home, you're opening it to the public. It should not look like flea market fines and unstable furniture. You have guests that sit on a 1950s little chair. Well, we're not the size we were back then. The traveling public isn't, and you can't have unstable furniture in these homes. So when we see things that are potential safety hazard, it's where form and function need to be in alignment when we're walking through a property. So unstable, you talked about mattresses or so Euro tops, thick pillow tops, things that will show body imprinting quickly. We recommend against that because while it may not be but 2 years old, it's going to look worn, the perception of the guest. And also our sheets are not, the gussets aren't deep enough to provide for a Euro top. So what we, when you get to the include, that would be of a plush firm, essentially, where the foam is integrated in it. It's not a separate piece. They're also hard to clean and dry quickly. So let's see, silk plants, fake plants, palm trees, no jungle. We're in a tropical area, but we don't need fake plants everywhere. They don't effectively get cleaned. It's impossible, and it's just a dust magnet. Rag rugs, slip hazards, non-skid. You want non-skid matting at your entranceways, but those cute little cotton rag rugs, they're just that. They're a rag. They need to go away because more times than not, your guests will get injured on that, especially if there's an elderly person in the home. So we go through and do like a mind sweep of things like this whenever we take over homes.
And you do it without hurting their feelings, right? Because
Sure.
that's always a thing when owners and you're previewing a home and they go, so tell me what you think of my home. Well, I just renovated it in 1999. Wow.
Right.
My grandmother's floral couch, when we brought it from her house. How do you do that without hurting a homeowner's feelings? I've actually lost property because of that.
Oh.
Hurt their feelings.
Well, it's nothing personal. It's about the item, and I try to have that as the focus in the conversation. It's when you open your home to the general public, you have to appeal to the masses. You have to make sure you provide a clean, serviceable place that's safe, and it's really not about your grandma's, tea set or rag rug or that thing from your kids, whatever. It's about what should be in there for a vacation rental. You're no longer the family beach house or mountain home once you put it in a rental program. So it's not personal. And when they understand or at least told the why, it helps because then they say, well, that makes sense. And if they want to lock it in their owner's closet and pull out the doilies and the fake plants and the they can do that, whenever they want.
Doilies, I love it. Let's talk about the do's. Do include. What are the kinds of things that, it's different today than it was even 5 years ago. People are asking for a DVR now. Like, you really want to record your show? Yes, I can't miss Grey's Anatomy. So,
Yeah,
but
smart TVs.
I have guests picking the place with the DVR now. So what are the things today's traveler are looking to have?
So many things. This was my quick brainstorm on that question. Again, like 45 seconds, and now I'm going to want to add to it. The first thing I thought about, though, is the flexibility of shared spaces because, I don't know, like your typical living room in a house that sleeps even like 15 to 20, you can't fit 15 or 20 people in the living room and the dining room all at once. And vacations are about coming together. And probably wants to get everyone in that same room at least some point in the vacation, right? So I try to figure out ways, like it totally depends on the floor plan, but to get flexible seating in whatever way I can. It helps if it's an open floor plan where the dining room and the kitchen and the living room all connect because there's space to be flexible. But anytime where you can get some flexible seating in so people have a chance to get eye to eye with each other in the same space, especially in those big homes, is one of the first things I'm looking at. For vacation rental design, it's a little different than typical. And some of the stuff you guys already know that your bed sheet should match, right? Like you don't put flat and floral together on your beds. Like some of this is like gimmies. You guys already know this stuff.
You don't put plaid, or you don't even have plaid or floral in your home.
Period, right? Like just do white sheets, guys. They don't have to be white, but I like white. Rainy day activities, like so interior design to me is about influencing human behavior and how we talk and how we interact in the space and with each other, right? So part of that, it's the whole experience of a house, especially if it's rainy out or stormy or whatever geographic location you are in and you can't go do the thing that you booked that house for and you're all stuck inside. That's when your interior design starts to matter a lot more, because everyone's going to start noticing everything because they're stuck inside. So if you give them little moments of curiosity, like they're going to open up every drawer anyway, why don't you put something in there that's going to kind of surprise and delight them? So rainy day activities could be like Jenga or a record player or any kind of other things, but I say get creative with it and I don't know, do a little art installation inside of one of those cabinets that makes everyone laugh or something. I don't know. Having a unique style, I think, is so important, because design is about representing some kind of personality that's not stale. And people, when they go on vacation, are wanting to get away from their routine, their day-to-day life. We want to give them something that helps them get out of that, and it has to be unique. It can't just look like another, even when it's done well, if it just looks like a catalog, it's like, all right, it just starts to look too predictable. So I always try to chat with the owner of some kind of personal history of the home. Like if that floral couch that they love so much of their grandmother's is important to them, like let's ask questions about why. What else do you think of about your grandmother, and how can I represent that in this space that can appeal to masses but not have that old couch in it? There's something like some digging and some psychology to get into with the unique style that I think is a really differentiator for that owner's home that'll make it stand out. Blackout curtains, you guys know those are important. Layers of light. It gets into universal design. Like just overhead lights often aren't enough for a task that you are doing, right? Like that's why under cabinet kitchen lights are a thing now. It's because you can't see enough to cut your carrots up if all you have is an overhead light. So now we have under cabinet lights are like a trend now. It's trend. They're a necessity for a lot of people. The light by your bedside because you want to read but your partner wants to sleep. Like thinking about the functionality of the spaces and how layers of light add to that's super important. Bedroom storage, this is actually one that I get into arguments about with my own team all the time, because we're like, oh, they're on vacation, only 2 or 3 days probably. They don't need a whole closet and a whole dresser. Like, let's use that space for something else, because space is at a premium, right? But you can't skimp on bedroom storage. It will show up in your reviews so quick if you don't put a dresser in there, or if you don't have hangers, or if you like skimp on the closet and you put something else in there entirely. You can't do that. You'll hear about it. Oh, man, and finally, I say old and new, and what I mean by that is similar to the unique style. To me, if like, let's say you bought a brand new house and you had to furnish it, and you just went to Living Spaces, which I do love, and you bought everything from Living Spaces, and it showed up and the next day, and it all is out of the box. It might look good for photos, it might like show up okay, right? But it's gonna feel stale if everything is so new. Oftentimes it's not usually in an owner's budget unless they're an investor where they did just buy the home. They're not gonna, if they have an existing home, they're not likely replacing everything at the same time. So finding the good pieces that have some character and including them and incorporating them into the key elements of the space, I think it just adds layers of story and narrative that I think guests really want to engage with. So I love I love vintage shopping anyway, so I love trying to find these pieces that like just feel like they have character and history and story behind them and kind of highlight them in some kind of way.
What about you? Let's just call out some things that you have to have in your vacation home. What do you have to have in your vacation home? Color. Okay. Good for photos, right? Because they're going to photo better. What else?
Plants.
plants? Are you dusting those leaves?
We are in a beach destination. We're from Mexico, so we are actually kind of.
So people look for that.
It's very different as we decor. Like we will use religious stuff because like the virgin or the crosses. It's a lot of things that most of our clients are from the U.S. and from Canada. And they really love the colorful things, in our
Very
culture,
interesting, right.
which include religious stuff and live plants.
Right. They're coming to your destination for that experience, and you're providing that
Yeah.
experience for them. Great.
Yep.
I did have a question on the live plants too. Why is that a do not?
So I'm really glad you asked, because I did want a chance to defend why I say don't do it. So if you've got a team that understands plants and knows when to water them and when not to, and you can promise that they're staying in good shape, oh my gosh, put them everywhere. But the thing about my experience with property management and housekeeping staff and guests is, okay, so you got a guest that just booked 8 days. That plant likes water. Or it doesn't. Let's say it doesn't like water. It's like a succulent, it's like a cactus. It doesn't like that much water, but a guest is like, oh, I'm here, let me do that. And then, someone else in the same group does that too, and then the housekeeper comes in and they're like, it's my job to take care of the plants, I'm gonna water it too. And then all of a sudden this great statement piece of a gorgeous houseplant is dead because we overcared for it, or undercared for it because we assumed that someone else did it. That's why it's on the do not. I mean, it's a maintenance item it's pretty hard to control who's doing it and how often. That's the only reason. Otherwise, man, I would put plants everywhere. In my house, they are everywhere.
Anything else? You have to have it.
So I have a lake house, and so I have a little thing that has extra sunglasses, like promotional sunglasses that I get from bugs like this, and I just put sunglasses there because I don't know what things. Great. The water reflection is pretty something.
How about a Keurig? People asking for that?
Yes.
And a drip coffee
That's
maker because your
actually
snowbird
a searchable
doesn't want
feature.
it, maybe?
Keurig or single brew. Yes, those are very popular. Yes.
Jody.
I used to tell my owners they have to have alarm clocks, but then when you go in after the renters leave, you realize they're all unplugged. So do you, yeah.
During the stay.
So do you, or they're plugging in their phones, which they use as their alarm clock. So do you suggest no alarm clocks, or the ones that have the plug-in in the alarm clock?
We do not mandate alarm clocks because, like you said, people are using their phones. By and large, the time is rarely correct, or it might be flashing or something like that. They become more of a nuisance and a detractor than an amenity or feature. So we've done away with them. If they are working and in good condition, we'll leave it. When it dies, it is not replaced, and it's not a setup item.
I have a quick question on how you guys feel about the smart TVs, because we have new owners that say, should I do cable, or can I just get away with smart TV? I know all the young travelers are very savvy with it, but then we have some older travelers that just want to turn on the news.
I could speak to that. In our program, we do require cable or satellite traditional TV, at least on 1 to 2. You remember the master pays, so when you talk about allocation of budget, the master bedroom should be spot on. That's the bill payer. 9 times out of 10, I would say. So living room master at a minimum should be cable or satellite enabled. The other smart TVs we will put in situations where it's not easy to drop coax, or to provide where someone could call up their Netflix or Hulu accounts. It's become a feature. It's becoming more and more of a standard amenity, and it's hard really at this point to find a non-smart or a dumb TV anymore. So you're getting those at this point anyhow. No, we don't. We do, unless there's an elevator in the home, then it should have that's a safety issue with fire department. So,
Well,
yes.
You have to look at your state law on that, because in the Florida, in our statute 509, you must have a landline.
Yes.
But I've interpreted that to say I must tell my owner they need to have a landline. Once they choose whether they're going to have a landline or not, then I need to let the owner know that they need to have and it's a 911 issue. They can't find you from your cell phone. They can find you from the landline.
Yeah,
so.
they can find. We have the technology for that, but in an elevator, it is required. So you would want to check your local codes.
Any other? How about don'ts? Does anybody have some to add?
I'm sorry, I was too late on the.
Okay, go ahead.
We find in our market, it's actually flexible bedding. We started with twin splits, like anywhere I can do a king twin split.
We don't do a lot of the beds that split just because of the linen setup and those variables. What we define as flexible bedding is anything above the stated and advertised capacity of the house. So if the house sleeps 10, but you may provide sleeping spaces for 12 or 13, it just gives the guest an option of where everybody's going to sleep. If it's a men's fishing trip, you know, they're not going to sleep in the same bed, not even hanging their leg off the side. So you know there's a return on having those flexible beds, and we will market the nicer air mattresses that are the pop-up style as additional bedding, or if a sleeper is not practical, that could add towards the capacity. But we have one home that the flexible beds of push it together, take it apart. It's a very European model, and Americans by and large don't get it, and it mars the walls pretty bad. So from a practicality standpoint, it has not been a successful implementation in our program.
I think you just answered this one, Carie, but I'm going to go on to this one and see what Kimberly has to say too, because we're really all interested in the bottom line, and so is your homeowner. So what specific designs and design changes can an owner do to bring up their bottom line? What's going to bring the revenue in for an owner and for your company?
I get this question a lot. It's a natural question to ask, and I feel like I still probably struggle to answer it a little bit, because to me design is about cohesiveness throughout a space. So I can't point to, well, if you just get a new coffee table, you'll get 10% more next year. Like, I can't point to one individual furniture item. It all has to go together. So cohesive design is the thing I would say to that, and that gets slippery for a very investor, ROI-focused owner. So then I just get into showing examples. But what I will say is that you can't have outdated furniture if you want the highest return. And typically the very first thing I do in a space is focus on, you know, like the biggest visual plane that your eye lands on, right? So you're going to see a floor before a ceiling just because the way our bodies are, we look this way, not this way. So if you've got shag carpet from the 70s, it doesn't matter what sofa I put in, you're not going to have an updated space. So I always look at floors and walls first, or whatever else is having the biggest visual weight on a room. So in a kitchen, that's probably your cabinets and your fridge. There's a lot of visual plane in front of you then.
And Carie, let's talk about this too. What photographs well? Because really the photographs, all the research shows that the first 6 photographs they see of your property are going to make it or break it. So what is going to make those photographs pop? And that's going to bring more revenue. So how do we do that besides cohesiveness?
Right. So when you talk about revenue and what you stand to make in a home, it is holistic. And you've got to look at this total of all parts, really. And many times when we walk through, it could be just that the house needs restaged, some things rearranged, and creating focal points of what marketing photos are going to pick up on. So you may not change substantially anything about the house. We do full remodels and down to just a little bit of staging where we throw $5,000 at something, and we determine where those monies are spent because we know where the camera's eye will be focused. And so those would be the areas you want to spend on. We assess the bedding configuration. In our market especially, we have properties in Savannah and on Tybee. The consumer is similar but not the same. And so in Savannah, we have less families and a ton of girls trips. It's like Bridesmaids Gone Wild and all that. So for that, you want your sofa color cosmopolitan red, or red wine red. So, woo! Yeah. So So that demographic and, the bedding is not as important. But when you're at the beach where we have family groups, the days, and this isn't the same for all markets. I know North Carolina is very different from Tybee Island, but the days of having bunk rooms I don't know the last time I sold a twin bed, much less a bunk bed. I would say it's pushing 5 years because it limits who's going to sleep in that bed. For example, Tim, could you fit in the bottom bunk bed? No, it'd be like Great Bape over there.
He'd claim the top. He would claim the top.
And it limits who's going to use that bedroom. And so when you walk through and you say, oh, wouldn't it be cute to have a child-themed bedroom? Yeah, it would if it's for your highest use, but it's not something I would recommend because it's not highest and best on the marketability, and it limits who's going to use it. So we've been kings, if you could fit it, versus a queen. I try never to buy queens if I could fit a king or a cow king in a room. So that's huge.
Great. So I did an experiment. I bought a rental property, and I went through my website. I talked to all my reservations. I said, what is everybody asking for? What properties are booking all the time, and what are guests asking for? 26,000 guests a year. I did it in our property, like DVR in the master bedroom, 55-inch TV, 500 thread count, Egyptian cotton, Keurig, drip, Foreman, it didn't matter what it was. We did it. And that property revenue increased by 33% over everything else in the building. So do you go through your website and what's booking and whatnot and tell your owners, periodically, look, here's the newest thing, here we need to do this? How do you get them to buy into that?
So we review each property. We have revenue goals on an individual basis, and then we look at its comparable set. So with commoditized inventory, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, condo, they're what they are. Those are easy. You want to create the differentiation between those. You don't want to sell units, right? So where they are all the same, when we're working in condos, particularly, you want to make them where they don't all appear alike. They're individual owners. They should be individually furnished. And the guests, just like us, can look at the stats. They're online. They could go, oh, this one has smart TV, king, queen. Yeah, I can't sleep in a queen. Gone. And so they're making their selection off the stats of the property. So when we have something underperforming within its comp set, we look at, why is it the outlier? What do the others have that the others don't? And that's an easy one when you have like-kind inventory. When you have unique inventory, what you would then take your cues from, whether it's a single-family home, if it's a townhome, does it have outdoor living spaces, what's the distance to the beach, and then you would backfill on amenities that are sought after, whether it be, game tables or fire pits or hot, cold outdoor showers. So that's when you start trying to check the boxes of the amenities that it may not have that others do.
And interesting, because you started your company 19 years ago, and for you who've been in the industry a long time, 19 years ago in my destination, they were looking for beachy homes, right? They wanted the fish on the wall and the bright yellow color and the fish nets. Now it's the rustic chic, vintage, they want to feel like, oh, this is like I'm with Joanna Gaines, and they just, it's a fixer-upper. I love it. Yeah. I'm going to say shiplap. But yeah, people, it's different what they're looking for now as opposed to what they were looking for then. So couple questions right before we wrap up.
How do you balance out bed size to room size? So for example, I have a bedroom that probably would fit a king, but it starts to get really tight for a guest to then have some luggage or just sort of feel a bit more in the space. So then do you go queen, or do you do another option to balance that out?
I like to make sure that you absolutely can fit a bedstand on both sides. And typically, if you can fit a nightstand, it's usually 18 inches or more. That it's still a little dicey. I like to leave 2 feet if I can on each side of the bed, but and a little more on the foot of the bed. But I feel like I don't like to say get away with it. Like, it won't feel too cluttered, and it won't be unsafe for like egress if you have to get out of the space quickly for any reason, if you've got at least 18 inches. If you're pushing it beyond that, or if to fit a king you've got to go all the way against, like push it into the corner, then I say go with the queen. Do you?
Yes, it has to be practical and feasible to put it in there. One space-saving thing would be headboard only, no footboard, no complete bed. That'll save 5 inches at the foot and on the sides typically. So, yeah, you want to be able to navigate around the bed safely. And in Savannah, and any of y'all that have historic homes, sometimes the room, you know, they were built to hold a double or less. And that's all you're going to get out of it, typically. We do a double's like a twin at this point. So if you could get a queen, you're fine.
One last question.
Okay, so this isn't a question, it's more of a thing a difference of opinion about the children's rooms. I had a house that I had an owner that wanted to sleep like 20 people in, and they were doing that before I came into it, and it allotted itself to a lot of parties. And so I actually purchased the home because it was a great home, great bones, everything, but it had 6 bedrooms. So I took it down to a suite 12, and I made kids' rooms in there on purpose because I wanted kids' rooms so that it tried to get that family group in there more than the partiers. I will tell you that that whole neighborhood was like kind of fighting around with the regulations a little bit. I went to every meeting. I actually used this and that as an example of what should probably be done with the home. That they should, just because they can sleep it doesn't mean they should sleep it. And I think that's something that we as an industry be very, very, very careful of, to make sure that our neighbors, and you can use design to help alleviate some of those situations. Because I make more money a week running it with 12 than I do when it was 20 because of what I did to it. So I'm just saying that there is...
Yeah, absolutely. And every area is going to be different, and every homeowner's desires and expectation are going to be different too. So that's all.
Right. The end goal is not overcrowding a house, so that diminishes everyone's enjoyment of it. I don't know many adult groups that want to. I wouldn't sleep on a sleeper, so that's just me. But I buy them all day long, so that's like kid bed, or they don't always get used. So it's really not about cramming people in a house. I agree, absolutely, but not limiting who's going to sleep in that room. What we've done as an alternate to bunk rooms is doing 2 queens or 2 doubles in the room. So a queen at least is the same length as a king, so a taller adult can sleep in it, whereas a double is shorter, like a twin, if it'll fit. But that's our alternative to getting 4 humans, if you will, in a room than having bunks.
I'd like to thank Carie and Kimberly for coming and all of your ideas, and thank you for your ideas as well.